Listen to me for just a moment. Forget everything you think you know about success. Forget the noise, the hustle, the advice you see plastered everywhere online. I want to ask you a very simple question, and I want you to sit with it in the silence. Why is it that so many people with dreams, with potential, with the same 24 hours in a day, why do they live a life that is at best comfortable and at worst a quiet surrender? They wake up, they go through the motions, they sleep, and they repeat. They are good people, honest people, but they are average. And you? You feel that pull for something more. That's why you're here, in the quiet, listening. You feel a restlessness that the average person doesn't. The question isn't whether you have the desire. The question is, do you have the faintest idea what's actually holding you back? It's not what you think. It's not your boss or your bank account or your lack of education. It's something far more silent and far more powerful. Let's begin to uncover it. The first thing we must do is look at the problem. Not the surface problem, not the lack of money in your bank account, though that may be a symptom. Not the difficult relationship that drains you, though that may be a weight you carry. Not the job that leaves you hollow at the end of each day, though that may be where you spend most of your waking hours. No, we have to go deeper, much deeper. We have to go to the very source, the factory where your entire life is built, piece by piece, thought by thought, day by day. And that factory is your mind. Most people live their entire lives as if they are passengers in their own minds. Have you ever noticed this about yourself? Thoughts come in, unbidden, like strangers walking through a door left unlocked. A thought floats around for a while, stirring up feelings, creating reactions. Then it leaves, and another one takes its place. The person watches this parade go by, never questioning who opened the door, never asking whether these strangers have any right to be there. They react to the world. The news makes them anxious, so they feel anxious. A comment from a colleague makes them angry, so they feel angry. A painful memory surfaces, so they feel sad and defeated. They are like a leaf on a river, completely at the mercy of the current, pushed and pulled by every eddy, every submerged rock, every shift in the wind. They believe their thoughts are just things that happen to them, a weather system moving through an empty sky. But here is the hidden problem, the thing most people never stop to consider, the truth that remains invisible to them their entire lives. Your mind is not just a passenger cabin where thoughts come and go. It is not an empty sky. It is a garden, a living, breathing, constantly producing garden. And a garden does not care what grows in it. That is the first law of the soil. It is utterly neutral. It will take whatever seed falls upon it, whether it is the seed of a beautiful flower or the seed of a choking weed, and it will give that seed everything it needs to grow. It will nourish it with the rain of your attention. It will warm it with the sunlight of your belief. It will give it the rich soil of your emotional energy. The garden does not judge. It simply produces. If you do not intentionally plant flowers, you will not get flowers. This is not a punishment. This is not the universe being cruel. This is simply the way things are. If you neglect the garden, if you walk away and hope for the best, you will not return to find a beautiful, orderly landscape. You will return to find weeds, thistles, tangled, thorny things that choke out any possibility of something better. That is the law. It will produce something. It is always producing something. The question is never if your mind will create your reality. The question is always what it is creating, based on the seeds you have allowed to take root. The average person allows any seed to blow into the garden of their mind. They are not careful. They are not watchful. They leave the gate open and pay no attention to what enters. A seed of fear from a conversation at work. Someone mentions layoffs, the economy looks uncertain, and that seed lands in the fertile soil of their imagination. They do not pluck it out. They do not say, "This fear does not serve me." Instead, they water it. They think about it on the drive home. They talk about it at dinner. They lie in bed at night, turning it over, imagining the worst-case scenarios. They are watering the weed, a seed of doubt from a news headline, stories of failure, of dreams crushed, of people who tried and lost everything, and that seed finds a home. They accept it as truth. They let it sink its roots deep into their consciousness. They protect it, nurture it, give it the best soil they have, and they wonder, years later, why their confidence is gone, why they can't seem to take a risk, why the voice inside them is always whispering, "You can't, it's not for you." Who do you think you are? A seed of limitation from a teacher who said they'd never amount to anything, a parent who meant well but always warned them not to aim too high, a friend who laughed at their dream when they were young and foolish enough to share it. These seeds, planted long ago, have grown into massive trees. Their roots have cracked the foundation of the soul. Their branches block out the sunlight of possibility. And the person, now an adult, walks through life in the shadow of these trees, believing the shade is just the way things are. They never stop to consider that they planted a forest of limitations, and now they live in it. They are not bad people. They are not lazy or stupid or weak. They are simply ignorant of the garden. They have never been told that they are the gardener. No one sat them down and explained that the mind is not a passive receiver of experience, but an active creator of it. No one taught them that attention is water and belief is sunlight, and whatever they focus on will grow. They have been gardening blindly their whole lives, wondering why their harvest is so bitter. Think about your own mind for a moment right now. Not in a rushed way, but truly pause and consider. In the silence of this moment, in the quiet space between these words, what thoughts are growing there? What seeds have you been watering without realizing it? Is it the thought that you're too old to start something new? That you've missed your chance? That the world is stacked against people like you? That success is for others, for the lucky ones, for the ones who were born with something you lack? Or are there thoughts of possibility, thoughts of quiet confidence, thoughts that whisper, maybe, just maybe? What if I tried? Be honest with yourself. This is not about judgment. This is about awareness. The gardener who does not know they are a gardener will always be confused by the weeds. They will blame the rain. They will blame the soil. They will blame the neighbor whose seeds might have blown over the fence. But the gardener who awakens, who opens their eyes and sees the rake in their own hands, that person has a chance. That person can begin to pull the weeds. That person can begin to pull the weeds. That person can begin to plant new seeds. That person can transform the landscape of their inner world, and in doing so, transform everything. This is the first, most critical truth that separates the few from the many. The few know they are the gardener. They accept the responsibility. They understand that no one else can tend their soil. They can ask for help. They can learn from master gardeners. They can study the great gardens of history. But in the end, the daily work, the quiet, patient, persistent work of weeding and planting and watering, that is theirs alone. The many remain the garden, accepting whatever grows, reacting to whatever comes, living as victims of their own neglected inner world. They are a product of the world, instead of a producer in it. And until you see this, truly see it with the kind of deep knowing that changes how you breathe, you will remain exactly where you are. You will continue to be pushed and pulled by every wind. You will continue to wonder why life feels so heavy, why progress is so slow, why the dream feels so far away. But the moment you see it, the moment you accept that you are the gardener, everything shifts. The power returns to you. The responsibility returns to you. And with it, the possibility. The beautiful, terrifying, exhilarating possibility that you can grow something magnificent, something that has never been grown before, something that only you could grow. This is where the journey begins. Not with a goal, not with a plan, not with a vision board or a list of affirmations. It begins with a decision, a quiet internal decision to take the rake in your own hands, to look at the soil of your mind and say, I will tend this. I will be careful what grows here. I will become the gardener of my own life. That decision, made in this moment, is the first seed of something that can change everything. And now, we must understand what happens when we fail to make that decision. We must look at the trap that catches most people, the drift that carries them away. So we have identified the garden. We have accepted, perhaps for the first time, that we are the gardener. We have looked at the soil and seen both the weeds and the empty spaces where something beautiful could grow. This awareness in itself is a kind of awakening. But awareness alone is not enough. It never has been. You can know you are a gardener. You can hold the rake in your hand. You can look at the soil with clear eyes, and still nothing grows. Still the weeds take over. Still you remain exactly where you started. Why? Because there is a trap. A subtle, invisible trap that catches almost everyone who begins this journey. And if you do not see it, if you do not name it, it will hold you for the rest of your life. Now we must identify the specific weed that chokes out everything else, the most pervasive, the most accepted, the most dangerous weed of all. It has many names, but Napoleon Hill, in his years of studying the most successful men and women of his time, in his thousands of hours of conversation with minds that had shaped industries and built fortunes, gave it a very clear name. He called it the drift, the act of drifting, the habit of drifting, the quiet, comfortable, seductive life of drifting. Think about a ship that leaves the harbor without a destination. Picture it clearly in your mind. This ship is not broken. It has a powerful engine capable of crossing any ocean. It has a capable crew, skilled and ready to work. It has stores of food and water for a long journey. Everything is in place for a great voyage, but the captain has not chosen a port. When the crew asks, "Where are we heading?" the captain shrugs and says, "Let's see where the wind takes us. Let's see where the current flows. We'll go where the world pushes us." What will happen to that ship? It will drift, that is certain. It will be pushed and pulled by every current, every gust of wind, every passing storm. It may avoid some rocks, simply by luck. It may find a few pleasant coves, sheltered and calm, and it may stay there for a while thinking, "This is good enough. This will do." But eventually, inevitably, it will run aground somewhere it never intended to be. It will be broken on a shore it never chose. It will be wrecked by a storm it never prepared for, not because the ship was weak, not because the crew was lazy, but because there was no guiding hand at the wheel, because there was no destination written on the map, because the captain abdicated the one responsibility that cannot be abdicated, the responsibility of choice. This is the life of the average person. This is the trap. They have the engine of a brilliant mind, capable of learning anything, creating anything, becoming anything. They have the crew of a capable body with strength and endurance and health. They have the supplies of time and energy, 24 hours given fresh each day, filled with potential. But they have no definite destination. They have no major purpose. They have no burning reason for being. And so they drift. They drift from job to job, not because they are building something, not because each position is a step on a staircase they have deliberately chosen, but because a job just appeared, because they needed money, because someone offered, because they didn't know what else to do. They drift from relationship to relationship, not because they are growing with someone, not because they are building a shared vision of a life together, but because they were afraid of being alone, because the other person was interested, because it was easier than being single. They drift through their days waking to an alarm they resent, working at tasks that mean nothing, coming home to numb themselves with entertainment, sleeping, and repeating. They are moving, yes. They are busy, yes. They are alive, yes. But they are not going anywhere. And the trap, the insidious, almost invisible part of this, is that drifting feels safe. That is its great deception. It feels safer than setting a course. Think about it. If you set a course for a specific island, if you say, "I am going to reach that distant shore no matter what," you are immediately confronted with responsibility. You must navigate the storms. You must make difficult decisions when the winds oppose you. You must keep the crew motivated when the journey is long and the destination is not yet visible. You must bear the weight of your own ambition. And if you fail, if you never reach that island, the failure is yours. You chose. You aimed, you fell short. That is a heavy thing to carry, but if you drift, you have no responsibility. This is the twisted comfort that millions embrace without knowing it. If things go wrong in a life of drifting, it is never your fault. It is the wind's fault. It is the current's fault. It is the economy's fault. It is your boss's fault. It is your parents' fault for not raising you better. It is the government's fault. It is society's fault. You are simply a victim of circumstance, carried along by forces beyond your control. And there is a strange, seductive peace in that victimhood. It absolves you. It lets you off the hook. It allows you to complain without ever having to change. This is the great lie that keeps people average. They trade the responsibility of choice for the comfort of complaint. They trade the risk of aiming high for the safety of drifting with the crowd. They trade the potential for greatness for the guarantee of mediocrity. And they do it all without ever realizing what they have given up. They think they are being practical. They think they are being realistic. They think they are protecting themselves from disappointment. But in truth, they are slowly, quietly surrendering their lives. Watch how it happens. A young person graduates with dreams. They want to write, to create, to build something of their own. But the world tells them to be practical, get a stable job, build a resume, save money. They listen, they take the job. They tell themselves it's temporary, just until they get on their feet. But the job consumes their days. It drains their energy. The writing gets pushed to evenings, then to weekends, then to someday. Years pass. They are no longer young. The dream is still there, but it is faded now, like an old photograph left in the sun. They have a house, a car, a retirement account. They have everything the world told them to want. But they are hollow. They drift through their weeks, waiting for Friday, waiting for vacation, waiting for retirement, waiting for a life that never comes. And they never connected the dots. They never saw that the path of safety was actually the path of loss. They never understood that by avoiding the risk of failure, they guaranteed a life of quiet failure. Here is the truth about the ocean of life. It has no mercy for drifters. It does not care about your good intentions. It does not care that you meant well, that you hoped things would work out, that you were just waiting for the right moment. The ocean is indifferent. The same currents that feel safe, that lull you into a sense of security, will eventually pull you under. They will carry you into waters you never wanted to sail. They will dash you against rocks you never saw coming. And when you are there, broken and lost, you will look back and realize that you had a wheel the whole time. You had an engine. You had a crew. You had everything you needed to sail to any shore you could imagine. But you never used it. You never chose. The only way to survive, the only way to thrive, is to drop your anchor in a definite purpose, to fire up your engines and steer, hard, every single day, not just when you feel motivated, not just when the weather is fair, not just when the destination is close enough to see, but every day. In the storms, you steer. In the fog, you steer. When you are tired and discouraged and ready to give up, you steer, because the moment you stop steering, the drift begins again. The moment you take your hand off the wheel, the currents take over. Most people never do this. They live their whole lives waiting for the wind to change. They wait for the perfect opportunity. They wait for the fear to go away. They wait for someone else to give them permission. They wait and they wait and they wait, not realizing that they have the power to become the wind, not realizing that a definite purpose, held in the mind and pursued with persistence, generates its own momentum. It attracts its own currents. It creates its own weather. This is the choice before you now. You have seen the garden. You have seen the drift. The question is no longer theoretical. It is personal. Will you take the wheel? Will you choose a destination? Will you accept that the comfort of drifting is an illusion, a slow poison that will rob you of everything you could become? Or will you continue to float, hoping that somehow, by some miracle, you will end up somewhere worth being? The answer to that question, made in this moment and renewed every morning, is what separates the few from the many. It is the line between a life of quiet desperation and a life of quiet purpose. And now, having seen the trap, we must look at the key that unlocks it. We must understand the principle that transforms a drifter into a commander. Now we arrive at the turning point. We have walked through the garden together. We have seen the weeds that grow when we are not paying attention. We have felt the pull of the drift, that slow, comfortable current that carries so many lives toward shores they never intended to reach. And if you have been honest with yourself in these quiet moments, you may have recognized yourself in both of these things. That is not a cause for shame. That is a cause for awareness. And awareness, as we are learning, is the beginning of everything. But awareness alone, as we have said, is not enough. You must also have the key. You must have the principle that, once understood and applied, changes the entire architecture of your inner world. It is the principle that takes you from being a drifter to being a commander. It is the principle that transforms a neglected garden into a cultivated paradise. It is what Napoleon Hill, after decades of studying the most successful minds of his generation, called the master mind. But we must be careful here. We must slow down. This is not a simple concept to be skimmed and forgotten like a headline read in passing. It must be felt. It must be turned over in the mind like a smooth stone in the palm, examined from every angle until its weight and texture become familiar. The mastermind is often described in simple terms, two or more minds working in harmony towards a definite purpose. And that description is correct as far as it goes. But the power of it, the reason it works, the deep and almost mysterious force it generates, that is something far more profound. It is the recognition that no individual mind, no matter how brilliant, is complete on its own. Imagine, if you will, a single candle burning in a vast, dark room. Picture it clearly. The room is enormous, larger than you can see, filled with shadows and unknown spaces. The candle sits on a small table in the center. Its flame is steady. Its light is real. It illuminates the table, the floor immediately around it, perhaps a small circle with a radius of a few feet. But beyond that circle, there is only shadow. The corners of the room are invisible. The far walls might as well not exist. The candle does its best. It burns brightly, but it is limited. It can only reveal what is close to it. This is the unaided individual mind. It has light. It has awareness. It has the capacity to see some things clearly. But it is surrounded by the darkness of its own ignorance, its own blind spots, its own fears, its own limited experience. Now imagine you bring a second candle next to the first. What happens? This is where most people stop thinking. They assume that two candles simply mean two circles of light side by side. But that is not what happens. Watch carefully. When you place the second candle next to the first, something remarkable occurs. The light does not simply double. It combines. It merges. The two flames, burning separately, create a single larger field of illumination. The shadows that existed between them retreat. Areas that were previously dark for the first candle are now lit by the second. Areas that were hidden from the second are revealed by the first. Together they illuminate spaces that neither could reach alone. The light increases exponentially, not just additively. This is the mastermind. It is not merely cooperation. It is not simply two people agreeing to work together. It is the creation of a third, invisible, intangible mind-collective intelligence, a shared consciousness that is greater than the sum of its parts. When two or more minds come together in perfect harmony, focused on a single definite purpose, they create something new in the universe. They generate a mental energy that did not exist before. They become, in a very real sense, more than they were separately. Think about what this means for your life. You have been trying to do it alone. You have been that single candle flickering in the darkness, wondering why you cannot see the path ahead, why the obstacles seem so large, why the fear is so hard to overcome. You have carried the weight of your ambitions on your own shoulders, believing that asking for help was a sign of weakness, that collaboration would somehow diminish your own achievement. This is the loneliness of the average mind. It is a loneliness that is entirely self-imposed and entirely unnecessary. When you ally yourself with even one other person who is also focused, who is also driven by a definite purpose, who is also committed to growing and becoming more than they are, something alchemical happens. Their faith reinforces your own when it wavers. You have those days, do you not? We all do. The days when the vision fades, when the doubts creep in, when the voices of the world seem louder than the voice of your own conviction. On those days, if you are alone, you may surrender. But if you have a mastermind alliance, there is someone else whose faith is strong when yours is weak. They hold the vision for you until you can see it again yourself. Their vision sees the path forward when you are blind to it. You have blind spots. We all do. There are things you cannot see about yourself, about your situation, about the opportunities around you. But another mind, tuned to the same frequency, can see what you miss. They can point out the door you walked past, the resource you overlooked, the strength you did not know you had. They are not competing with you. They are completing you. Their energy ignites a fire in you that you cannot create on your own. Have you ever been in the presence of someone who is fully alive, fully engaged, fully committed to something meaningful? Have you felt how their energy lifts you, how their enthusiasm becomes contagious, how their belief makes you believe? This is not imagination. This is the master mind at work. Energy flows between minds that are in harmony. It is a real force, as real as electricity, as real as gravity, and it can lift you higher than you could ever go alone. This is why no truly great achievement in history was the work of a single, isolated individual. Go back and look. Study the lives of the great inventors, the great leaders, the great artists, the great thinkers. You will find that every one of them was part of a master mind, whether they called it that or not. Even the artist, alone in their studio, brush in hand, is in a mastermind alliance with the masters who came before them, whose work they have studied and internalized. They are in conversation with the great minds of the past, drawing on their wisdom, being shaped by their example. No one creates in a vacuum. No one creates in a vacuum. The average person tries to go it alone. They believe that asking for help is a sign of weakness, that collaboration is a dilution of their own glory, that they must prove themselves by doing everything themselves. They are the single candle, flickering in the dark, wondering why they cannot light up the world. They exhaust themselves trying to be enough, trying to know enough, trying to do enough, and still the shadows remain. Still the path is unclear. Still the fear persists. The wise person, the one who stops being average, understands that their ego is the enemy. They understand that the need to appear self-sufficient is a trap that guarantees mediocrity. They seek out other minds. They build alliances. They create circles of light so powerful that the darkness of doubt, of fear, of impossibility simply cannot exist within them. They understand that a mind coordinated with another mind creates a new force in the universe, and that force is available to anyone willing to set aside their pride and reach out. This is not just a strategy for success. It is a law of nature. It is the way the universe is wired. Isolation leads to extinction. Harmony leads to growth. The lone wolf may be romanticized in stories, but in reality, the lone wolf is a dying wolf. The pack survives. The pack thrives. The pack creates things that no single member could create alone. Listen carefully to this part. The mastermind is not about finding people who agree with you on everything. It is not about surrounding yourself with yes-sayers who simply reinforce your existing opinions. That is not harmony. That is echo. True harmony requires different notes. A choir that sings only one note is not a choir. It is a monotone. The power of harmony comes from different voices, different tones, different perspectives, all aligned in purpose, all moving toward the same destination. You need people who see what you cannot see, who challenge what you have accepted, who bring gifts you do not possess. Think about who is in your life right now. Who are your candles? Who illuminates the shadows you cannot see? Who strengthens you when your faith is weak? Who brings energy and vision and perspective that you lack? If the answer is no one or very few, then you have found the reason for your stagnation. You have been trying to light the whole room with a single flame. This is the principle that changes everything, not because it is complicated, but because it is simple and profound and almost universally ignored. The average person lives and dies alone in their mind. The extraordinary person builds bridges. They create alliances. They form masterminds. And in doing so, they access a power that transforms not only their own life, but the lives of everyone they touch. Now, having seen this principle, we must understand how it operates in the minds of those who have mastered it. We must look at how great achievers think differently how their mental habits set them apart from the crowd. That is where we go next. So, what happens when a person begins to garden their mind, tending it with care and intention? What changes when they stop drifting? When they drop anchor in a definite purpose and take hold of the wheel? What becomes possible when they form a mastermind alliance, joining their light with other lights to illuminate the darkness? They begin to think differently. This is the natural and inevitable result of applying these principles. And it is in this difference of thought, this fundamental shift in the way the mind operates, that the entire game of life is won or lost. The average person and the great achiever live in the same world. They breathe the same air. They walk the same streets. They face the same challenges, the same economic conditions, the same uncertainties. But they do not see the same world. They inhabit different realities. Their minds are tuned to different frequencies, like radios receiving different stations. Both stations are broadcasting, both are real, both exist in the same space. But what you hear depends entirely on where you have set your dial. The average mind is tuned to the frequency of conditions. It looks at the world and says, with certainty and finality, this is how it is. It sees the present circumstances as solid, permanent, unchangeable. It looks at an obstacle and sees a wall. Not a challenge to be overcome, not a problem to be solved, but a wall. Solid, impenetrable. The conversation ends there. It looks at a failure and sees a verdict. Not feedback, not information, not a lesson. A final judgment. I tried and it didn't work. Therefore, I cannot. The case is closed. It looks at a lack of resources, money, connections, education, and sees a reason not to start. I don't have what I need, therefore it is impossible. Its focus is entirely on the present reality, and it assumes, without question, that this reality is permanent. That what is true today will be true tomorrow, and next year, and forever. I don't have the money. This is not an observation to the average mind. It is a chain. It binds them to an action. I don't have the connections. Another chain. I don't have the time. Another. The market is bad. The economy is uncertain. My family has never been successful. Chain after chain after chain, each one forged from the raw material of present conditions, each one accepted as unbreakable truth. The average mind does not question these chains. It does not test them. It simply wears them, and over time, it forgets they are even there. It begins to believe that the chains are part of its nature, that it was born to be bound. The great achiever, the one who has learned and internalized the principles we are discussing, tunes their mind to a completely different frequency. They look at the exact same world, the exact same circumstances, and they ask a different question. They do not ask, what is? They ask, what could be? This is not naivety. This is not wishful thinking or a refusal to face facts. The great achiever sees the wall. They are not blind to it, but while the average mind stops at the wall, the great achiever's mind immediately begins searching for a door, a ladder, a way over it, under it, or through it. They see the obstacle, not as a stop sign, but as a problem to be solved. And they trust, deeply and quietly, that every problem has a solution. They see failure not as a verdict, but as data. This is one of the most profound shifts that occurs in the mind of the achiever. When something does not work out as planned, they do not conclude, I am a failure. They do not pack up their dreams and go home. They step back and ask, what can I learn from this? What did this experience teach me about what doesn't work? How does this bring me closer to what does? Thomas Edison, asked about his many unsuccessful attempts to create the light bulb, said something that captures this perfectly. He said he had not failed. He had simply found 10,000 ways that did not work. Each failure was a step forward. Each dead end was information. Each setback was a lesson that brought him closer to the breakthrough. This is how the achiever's mind operates. It reframes everything. It takes the same raw materials that the average mind uses to build prisons and uses them to build bridges. A rejection becomes redirection. A loss becomes a lesson. A closed door becomes an invitation to look for an open window. The circumstances are the same. The interpretation is entirely different. Listen carefully to this part. This is where the shift happens, where the transformation becomes real. The great achiever understands something that the average person has never been taught. They understand that the only true reality, the only reality that ultimately matters, is the one they carry in their own mind. The external world is real, yes. It has weight and substance and consequences. But the external world is also malleable. It responds to thought. It is shaped by belief. It is transformed by vision, held with persistence and faith. Henry Ford, a man Napoleon Hill studied extensively, built an empire on this truth. Think about what he did. He envisioned a horseless carriage at a time when the world was filled with horses. The condition of the world was clear. Horses were the primary mode of transportation. Everyone accepted this. It was simply the way things were. But Ford did not accept it. He looked at the condition of the world, and he was not limited by it. He saw something else. He saw a world where ordinary people could own and operate their own vehicles. He saw a world of mobility and freedom that did not yet exist. He held that vision, not loosely, not as a daydream, but tightly, clearly, persistently. He held it through years of struggle, through failures, through ridicule, through times when everyone around him thought he was foolish or insane. And what happened? He eventually pulled that vision out of his imagination and made it a physical reality that millions could use. The vision existed in his mind before it existed anywhere else. The cars, the factories, the assembly lines, the vast empire, all of that was first a thought, a single, persistent, focused thought in the mind of one man who refused to be limited by present conditions. Most people look at the world and let it shape their thoughts. They are like clay, and the world is the potter. Whatever circumstances press upon them, they take that shape. If the economy is bad, they think small. If people doubt them, they doubt themselves. If they have never seen someone like them succeed, they assume success is not for them. They are passive. They are reactive. They are shaped by the world. The great achiever reverses this completely. They shape their thoughts first, deliberately and intentionally. They decide what they will believe, what they will focus on, what they will hold as possible. And then, having shaped their inner world, they use those thoughts to shape the outer world. They become the potter. The world becomes the clay. It is a complete reversal of the common way of living. It is the difference between being a victim of circumstance and being a master of destiny. This does not mean they ignore problems. They are not naive optimists who pretend difficulties do not exist. They see the problems clearly, but they refuse to be hypnotized by them. They refuse to let the problem become the center of their attention. Their dominant thought, the thought they return to again and again, is always on the solution, on the goal, on the vision. They keep their eyes on the destination, not on the storms along the way. And because their mind is focused on that frequency, something remarkable begins to happen. They become a magnet. They begin to attract the people, the resources, the opportunities that are vibrating at the same frequency. This is not magic. It is not mysticism. It is a law, as reliable as gravity, as predictable as the tides. You become a magnet for what you consistently think about. If you think about lack, you attract more lack. If you think about obstacles, you attract more obstacles. If you think about possibility, you attract the means to make that possibility real. The world simply mirrors back to you the dominant content of your own mind. Think about your own thinking. What frequency are you tuned to right now? What is the dominant content of your inner world? When you look at your circumstances, do you see walls or doors? When you encounter failure, do you see a verdict or a lesson? When you face a lack of resources, do you see a reason to stop or a problem to solve? The answer to these questions is not abstract philosophy. It is the most practical thing in the world. It is determining your future, right now, in this moment. The average mind is a victim of its own thoughts, tossed about by every wind. The great achiever is the master of their thoughts, steering deliberately toward a chosen shore. And the difference between them is not IQ. It is not education. It is not luck. It is simply the choice of what to focus on, what to believe, what to hold as possible. That choice is available to you right now. in this very moment. And the moment you make it, everything begins to change. And so, we arrive at the end of this reflection. We have traveled a long way together in a short span of time. We have walked through the garden of the mind and seen the weeds that grow when we are not paying attention. We have felt the pull of the drift, that slow, comfortable current that carries so many toward shores they never chose. We have discovered the principle of the master mind and understood that no one succeeds alone. We have looked inside the minds of great achievers and seen how they think differently, how they refuse to be hypnotized by circumstances, how they hold their vision until the world reshapes itself around it. And if you have listened carefully, truly listened, not just with your ears, but with something deeper, something beneath the surface noise of your everyday thoughts, then something has happened. You are not the same person who started this journey a short while ago. You cannot be. A shift has occurred. A seed has been planted in the soil of your consciousness. This is a quiet but powerful awakening moment. Notice that it is quiet. That is important. The world teaches us to expect awakening to come with trumpets, with dramatic revelations, with sudden and unmistakable signs. We wait for the lightning bolt, for the voice from the sky, for the moment when everything becomes clear and we are forever changed in an instant. And because we wait for that, we miss the real thing. The real awakening does not arrive with a thunderclap. It arrives in a whisper, in the silence between these words, in the pause after a thought that strikes a little too close to home, in the moment when you look at yourself and see, for the first time, what has always been there but hidden. You now see the garden. This is not a small thing. Most people go their entire lives without ever realizing that they are gardeners, that the soil of their mind is constantly producing, that they have been watering weeds without knowing it. But you see it now. You see that the thoughts of lack, the thoughts of fear, the thoughts of limitation that have lived in you for years, these are not permanent features of your landscape. They are weeds. They can be pulled. They can be removed. The soil can be cleared and planted with something new. This awareness, simple as it sounds, is the beginning of freedom. You feel the pull of the drift. You recognize it now. You see how easy it is to let go of the wheel, to let the currents carry you, to trade the responsibility of choice for the comfort of complaint. You see it in yourself, perhaps, and you certainly see it in the world around you. You notice now how many people are drifting, how many have handed over the direction of their lives to circumstance, and then wonder why they feel so lost. And because you see it, you are no longer trapped by it in the same way. The drift requires unconsciousness. It requires that you not notice you are drifting. The moment you notice, the moment you feel the current and recognize it for what it is, you have already begun to steer. You understand the power of the master mind. You recognize the loneliness of the single candle, the limitation of trying to illuminate the whole room with your own small flame. You feel, perhaps for the first time, the deep human need for alliance, for harmony, for the kind of connection that multiplies light instead of simply adding it. You understand that seeking help is not weakness, that building alliances is not a dilution of your glory, that the lone wolf is a dying wolf. This understanding changes how you will move through the world from this moment forward. You will look at people differently. You will see potential allies where before you saw only strangers. You will reach out where before you held back. And you have tasted the difference between thinking about conditions and thinking about possibilities. You have felt what it is like to look at a wall and search for a door, to look at a failure and ask what it teaches, to look at a lack and see a problem to be solved, rather than a reason to stop. This is not just a mental exercise. It is a new way of being. It is a shift in the very frequency of your mind. And once you have tuned to that frequency, once you have felt what it is like to live there, you cannot completely forget it. You will wander back to the old frequencies, yes. The pull of habit is strong. But you will know in some quiet corner of yourself that there is another way, and that knowledge will call you back. This is the moment of choice. It does not arrive with drama. It arrives in the quiet, in the space between thoughts, in the pause before you return to the noise of your daily life. The awakening is not that you now have all the answers. You do not. The questions remain. The challenges remain. The work remains. The awakening is that you now know the right questions. You know what to look for. You know what to guard against. You know that the battle for your life will be won or lost in the silent, sacred space between your ears. You know that the external world, with all its noise and demands and distractions, is not the primary battlefield. The primary battlefield is within, and you are now awake on that battlefield. The world will try to put you back to sleep. This is important to understand. It is not malicious, not deliberately trying to keep you small. It is simply the nature of the world. The world runs on momentum, on habit, on a repetition of the familiar. Tomorrow morning, the noise will return. The alarm will ring. The news will be alarming. The people around you will be complaining about the same things they complained about yesterday. The drift will feel so easy, so natural, so much like the path of least resistance. And in that moment you will be tempted to forget, to let the awareness slip away, to go back to the old way of being. But you will have this moment, you will have this memory of a different way of seeing. You will have these words, not as a lecture to be remembered, but as an experience that happened to you. And in that memory lies your power. It is not about never falling back into the old patterns. It is about knowing, when you do, that you have fallen. It is about feeling the difference between the drift and the steering. It is about having a reference point, a place to return to when you are ready to begin again. You are not here to be average. You never were. That restlessness you have felt, that pull towards something more, that dissatisfaction with the ordinary rhythms of a life lived on autopilot, that was not a mistake, that was not a character flaw, that was not ingratitude for the blessings you have. That was the voice of the gardener inside you, telling you it was time to work the soil. That was the whisper of the captain at the wheel, telling you it was time to choose a destination. That was the candle, yearning for other candles, knowing that its light was meant to be part of something larger. So as you go from this place of quiet, as you return to the world of noise and motion and distraction, carry one thought with you. Hold it gently, but hold it close. It is not your circumstances that define you. It is not your past that limits you. It is not what others think of you that determines your worth. It is the dominant thought of your own mind. That single, powerful, persistent thought that you choose to entertain, to nourish, to believe. That thought is the most powerful force in your life. It is the seed from which your entire future will grow. And that thought, that one thing, is the only thing in all the universe that you have absolute sovereign control over. Not the economy, not other people, not the weather, not the actions of governments or markets or strangers, but your own dominant thought. That is yours, completely and forever yours. No one can think it for you. No one can take it from you. No one can change it without your permission. It is the one true territory of your freedom. Choose it wisely, not just once, in a moment of inspiration, but daily, hourly if necessary. In the morning when you wake, before the world has a chance to plant its seeds in your garden. In the evening when you lie down, reviewing the thoughts you have watered that day. In the moments of difficulty, when the old patterns pull hardest at you. Choose it, again and again. Choose the thought that lifts you, that empowers you, that aligns with the person you are becoming. And watch. Watch quietly, patiently, persistently. Watch as the world begins to reshape itself around the new person you are becoming. Not overnight, not without struggle, but steadily, as surely as the garden grows when it is tended. Opportunities will appear that were not there before. People will come into your life who resonate with your new frequency. Solutions will emerge to problems that once seemed unsolvable. This is not magic, it is law. It is the law of a mind that has found its rudder, a garden that has found its gardener, a life that has stopped drifting and begun to sail. This is the beginning, not the end. The journey has just started and you are now awake for it. Carry that wakefulness gently into your life. It is fragile at first, like any new thing. Protect it, nurture it, return to it when you lose it. And know that in this quiet moment something real has shifted, something that cannot be unshifted. You have seen, and having seen, you can never be completely blind again.